Up till now, we have completed two parts of our session 2. In the first part, we had a look at what is Java as a platform and reviewed how to set up Java environment on our systems and how to set up Eclipse IDE for Java programming. Next, in the second part, we had a look at Java as a programming language. We reviewed a variety of topics right from the very basics like creating a Java project and assigning and creating variables till a bit of more advanced topics like polymorphism, inheritance and encapsulation. Now in this third part of session 2 we'll cover three topics which will be how to incorporate Selenium WebDriver to a Java project. Then we'll have a brief look at what is Maven, and lastly we'll create a Maven project as well and incorporate Selenium WebDriver in it. So let's start by incorporating Selenium WebDriver to a simple Java project. So we had seen in the first part of this session from where to download Selenium library files, and we had downloaded them as well. So just for a recap, let's go back to the Selenium website, seleniumhq.org, and we go to the download Selenium section. From here we had seen that there are at least two files which we need to download to set up Selenium. The first one would be Selenium standalone server, so we download its latest version, and the next thing is the Selenium client bindings, and since we are using Java we will download its client side bindings. Along with these two basic files we would also need one or two browser driver files which will control the browsers which we intend to use within our testing. So there's a long list of available browser driver files which Selenium supports, but for the time being and for this session we'll just download at least two of them. The first one would be Internet Explorer driver server, and we download the correct version for it with respect to the operating system which we have, and we'll have Google Chrome driver as well downloaded. We'll be using either Chrome or IE during this session, so we'll download this one as well. These four files should be kept at a convenient location on your system. So for example, I have kept them here. So these are the Selenium files which we have downloaded, the Selenium standalone server and the client-side bindings. And similarly, I have kept the IE driver server which is in .exe along with the Chrome driver which is also in .exe to this location. Now if we come back to our Java project or the which we had created, so we'll incorporate Selenium files and use Selenium commands to create a basic Selenium project here using the same project. So again, let's get rid of all of this code and start using Selenium. While reviewing Selenium, we had seen that it is merely a library which contains lots of features which we would need to automate our test cases. So for any Java project to be able to execute Java commands, it needs to incorporate that library into it. So for example, when we had created a simple Java project, it had associated a simple JRE systems library, and through which all of the Java functionality was available to us. Now if we want the Selenium library to be associated with this particular project, we would first need to incorporate that within the project. There are two ways to incorporate this external library to Java project. The first mechanism is to go to the project and from there choose the build path option and the sub option of configure build path. Here you can see that all of the libraries which are currently associated with them would be available within the libraries tab. you can add an external jar, and that external jar should be Selenium standalone server along with the client bindings. So when we add these two files here, they can now be accessed by the code within the Java project, because these files have now been incorporated within the project, and the project code can access them and utilize them. Okay, so this is the first and the very elementary mechanism of incorporating an external library or external Java files to a Java project. The main drawback of this particular mechanism is that it is associated with a particular path on your system, which is other than the path where your project resides. So if the files are removed from this particular location, or another person is using your project from a centralized location, he might not have these files on this particular location, and which would give errors while compiling, and he would need to set up the files to a particular location on his system, and then associate or perform these steps again with that new path. So a more better way of incorporating an external library to a project is to keep those files within the within the project. So for doing that, what we can do is that we first go to the project and create a folder, and within the folder, we can give the folder name Selenium files, and you can see a folder has now been created within the same project. Now what I can do is that I can move the files or copy those files from a particular location to this folder which resides within the project. So for example, the standalone server, I'll just drag them and then copy files option, so they are now, it is now available here. And similarly, the client side bindings, again copying those files here. So now these two files have now been copied within the project. Now if I have to configure the build path to have these two files referenced as well, so what I would need to do is that I can just go here, build path, and then choose the option of add to build path. When I do this, you would see that along with this library, the system library which is already available with us, we would have an additional section or additional library available, and that will contain this the reference of this particular library. So let's do it. So you can see now the referenced libraries section has been added, and within it, it has placed this file, the client-side bindings for Java, and from this from the folder you can see that a new icon is available, which means that this file is being referenced in the reference library section. Similarly, we need to do the same step for the standalone server. So let's go to build path and add this to build path as well. So again, in the reference libraries, you can see that the standalone server is now available as well, and the same icon appears for this file as well. So this is a more comprehensive way, because of the fact that whenever this project is going to be built or be transferred to a central location, and whoever would access this would find these files within the same project root structure, and would always be referenced and would be available to it, and we do not need to perform the steps of trying to resolve the folder location within our own system. Similarly, if you go to this currently project resides within our workspace, and if we go to the workspace, so this is the workspace which I had created where all of my projects reside. Within this, if I go to the project, our project, you can see that we have now the Selenium file folder available. Within it, the files are also available. So whenever this project is going to be transferred to a central location, it will always have these files contained within it, and so there's no need to actually try to resolve the path locations or try to resolve issues on different systems, because of the fact that the file may not be available on that particular location which we had referenced. Now that we have added Selenium references to our project can now access all of the Selenium features and we can use them within our project. So before we actually write any code which is related to accessing Selenium's features, we would first need to import the relevant library. So for that, we would again write the import keyword and org dot openqa dot selenium, and if we put an asterisk again, it will have all of the Selenium features, but currently let's just add one of the features, which is the WebDriver. So we have added one thing just because that we would want to launch a browser and then open a URL for the time being. So for that to happen, we would need to create an instance of the WebDriver within our code, and which will contain or take control of the browser, and we will use its methods to actually open a particular URL in that browser. So now that we have imported the relevant libraries, we can now create an instance of the WebDriver. And for doing that, as we had seen in our last session of Java, this represents a class which has been implemented by the Selenium library, and this is a variable name. And when we need to create an instance of a particular class, we would use the keyword of new. Now, after the keyword new, we would need to specify which kind of a browser we would need to open. So that instance will get created in the form of the WebDriver. So for example, if we want to create an instance of the browser, the IE browser, we would need Internet Explorer driver. Now it will give an error because of the fact that we have not referenced this, and I just wanted to show you how we can reference or import the relevant library without having specified that before. So what we can do is just if we click on the error, you can see that it will itself provide suggestions of importing the correct library. So initially what we had done is that from our own memory we had written all of this, but if we do not know or do not remember what kind of a library or what was the name of the library which needs to be incorporated for this particular thing, for example, we can just go to the error and rely on its suggestions. It will give a lot of suggestions, but if we just need to import a library, we can just use this option, and you can see whenever I click on this, it will get imported and a new line would be inserted within the import section. So this has now been added and the error has also been resolved. So we have just directed our WebDriver instance to be of the form of the Internet Explorer. Now for that to take effect, or for our code to be able to call the Internet Explorer, we need to talk to the IE driver server which we had downloaded. So if we again go to our files which we had there, you can see that we had this IE driver server available, and this was a location. So our code cannot directly cannot directly call the internals of IE or the browser. We need to talk to the browser through this exe file. So this would be our interface through which we can access and give commands to the browser. So what we would need to do, we would be putting in a command to provide the folder location or the location of this particular exe file, and our code will then find this file and then communicate with it to perform certain actions which we want to perform on the browser. So for this, the command is system.setProperty, and there are two arguments to it. The first one would be webdriver.ie.driver, and the second one would be the location of this driver. One thing to note is that when I put the location here, it will give me an error because the single slash is a escape sequence within Java, so I would need to replace the single backslash with a double backslash, and I would need to specify the whole location till the .exe. Now our program now would know from where to pick up this server IE driver server exe, and through it talk to the Internet Explorer, and what to do with the Internet Explorer. We would just now use the instance of my browser dot. So the all of the functions which we would need to access a browser or to perform different actions on a browser have already been incorporated within the WebDriver class. So this instance would contain all of those. So for example, there's a long list of things which we can do with the browser. For the time being, we would just open a particular URL, and for that we would use its get method and provide a URL here. Okay, then I can maybe write something to the console. And lastly, we would use again one of the functions within the WebDriver class to actually quit or to close down the whole browser instance. So let's now save it and run this. So you can see the Internet Explorer was opened and the URL of Google was navigated to, and then it was closed as well. Similarly, we had written this in the console, which is also appearing. So that is how we have just incorporated Selenium library to our project, and we have created a simple Selenium project and have used a simple command to just open a browser and navigate to a particular URL and then close the browser. So these functionalities were actually implemented by Selenium. So for a particular tester doing testing on web applications, he would need these kinds of functions to automate his scripts: opening of a browser, navigating to certain pages, and then manipulating with some browsers, and then accessing some fields on that particular page, and verifying the results as well, and then closing out the browser. So all of these things have been incorporated into various libraries of or the various methods and objects available within the Selenium library, and we use these features of Selenium to automate our test cases. So we have just incorporated Selenium and have used one of its classes, which is the WebDriver class, to create an instance, and had used few methods written within it to just open a browser and navigate to a particular URL and then close it out. We will have a deeper look of WebDriver, its features, and the methods which it has implemented, which will aid us in automation in session 3 of this series. So for the time being, we'll just close this, and since we have just incorporated Selenium WebDriver into our simple Java project and have executed few commands to ensure that we can access Selenium and use its functionalities. Let's now move to our next topic. So the next topic is Maven. So Maven is a software project management tool, basically, which manages a project's builds, reporting, documentation, and a central piece of information. One of the main features of Maven is that it provides a standard way to build projects and a clear definition of it, and it has a very large and growing repository of libraries located at a central location, and all of these jar files which we need to have within our project, we do not need to incorporate them individually within our project and to copy those files and then reference those within the project itself. What we can do is that we can just refer to the central location, the centralized location of where those libraries reside, and all of the project, whenever it is built on different people, maybe located at different locations as well, they can all access the internet, and at the compile time or the build time, those files will be automatically accessed via that central location, will be copied onto those systems individually, and it will be a hassle-free activity rather than performing all of those steps manually. Now let's use this feature and create a Maven project and refer to the Selenium libraries which we want to incorporate into that project using the Maven's central repository. So let's get back to our project. So what we are intending to do is that in our simple Java project, what we had done is that we had downloaded few files which we needed as external libraries, and then we had placed them into certain locations within the project or maybe outside the project, and then we had created or configured the build path to actually reference those libraries so that we are able to use the code of those particular libraries. Now there are lots of reasons why this is a risky thing, especially with the distributed teams which we now have. So different people doing work on the same project, and they may be located at different places throughout the world. So performing all of these steps is quite risky. Now to solve this particular problem, the files have been placed into a centralized location by Maven, and that centralized location is known as the Maven Repository. So this library contains a lot of files from different organizations, from different open source projects. So if we just go here and see that OpenQA, we'll just go and so within the org we would have OpenQA somewhere, OpenQA, and within it you can see that we have Selenium, and it will contain all of those libraries which we would need. So we have this Selenium core available as well as Selenium server available, and along with the Selenium RC which we no longer need. So this is the location of, and this is also available within the Selenium HQ website, and it gives you that we would need to refer to this particular location if we are to create a Maven project. So when we know where the repository is, now let's create a new project which will be a Maven project, and then how to set up or to refer to these libraries which are located at the central repository of Maven. So let's start by creating a new Java project. Now this option which we had used previously would again create a simple Java project. We need to have a Maven project, so we can go to other, and here you can see a heading of Maven, and we would just use the option of Maven project, and we'll just create a simple project, and then we will give the essential information for creating it. So on Maven. So you can see we have just created a simple Maven project. Now to refer to those libraries within the within this project, to refer to those Selenium libraries, we would need to configure its pom.xml. So if we just double click on it, you can view it, and we should go to its XML version. So this XML version contains the basic information about this project. We would need to add a dependency for the particular Selenium file which we have just seen. So let's again go back to the Selenium HQ, and you can see that we need to just add this dependency. So we just need to copy that and just place it on it. Now if you see that there is no reference libraries available, and there's only the system default library which is available within this project. But when I add this dependency, uh, I would need to have that within dependencies. C section, Control C, and here I would need to close this dependencies section. So within the dependencies section, we have just added the dependency of Selenium. And now when I would save this pom.xml using Control S, it will copy all of those files which we had referenced within the dependencies section and would create a new section here, Maven Dependencies, and copy all of the files from the central location to this area. So now whenever this project is going to be built by any other person as well, this project does not contain actually the hard-coded references to a particular location within the project, from where to pick up the libraries. It contains this pom.xml which contains this dependency, and each time that project is built by a person who does not have these files, the pom.xml will redirect at the time of building this project to this particular location, and all of those files which are for the particular version which we have referenced within it will get copied at the build time to this Maven dependency section. And so it will resolve the problems of different people within the team having different files or the versions of the same libraries, and because all of them would be referencing to a centralized location which we had presented or specified within the dependency section of pom.xml. Now that we have created the dependency for Selenium in our Maven project and have incorporated it within this Maven project, we should now be able to use the features of Selenium. So let's try to do the same thing which we had done previously in our normal Java project. We'll start creating a WebDriver instance, and we will this time use the Chrome driver to take control of the Chrome browser, and then we'll open the URL and then print out something in the console, and then we'll close down the browser. Okay, so within the project itself, since Selenium will be used to create test cases, we can use this option which is available within the folder hierarchy to create a package within it. Give it a name again, just like we had done previously. And within it we can create a class. Again, check mark on the main function to be included in this class, and then paste the same code here. Again, as you can see that these two files have automatically been imported, and we can now run this code. So you can see the Internet Explorer was opened, and then it navigated to Google, and that closed out the browser. So this is how we have now created a Maven project, have included or incorporated the dependencies for Selenium, and then we have written a simple code to actually start an Internet Explorer, navigate to a particular URL, and then close the browser. So with this we can now conclude the third part of session 2. So in this part we have learned how to incorporate Selenium WebDriver to a simple Java project. Then we had an overview of what Maven is. Then we created a Maven project and incorporated our Selenium code to a Maven project, and then we were able to run that as well. So let's recap the whole three parts which we have completed now. So we started off with taking an overview of what Java is as a platform. Then we set up the Eclipse IDE on our machines and then downloaded the relevant file for Selenium WebDriver. Next, we had a review of what Java is as a programming language. We covered a variety of topics within that session. And lastly, we created a simple Java project and incorporated Selenium WebDriver in it, and then took an overview of what Maven is, and then created a Maven Java project and incorporated Selenium WebDriver in it. So now let's see what will be our next steps. So up till now we have completed two sessions, and we have completed setting up Java and incorporating Selenium WebDriver in it and creating simple Java projects with Selenium WebDriver. Next, in our future sessions, we will be taking a deeper look into WebDriver and using its most commonly used methods to control browser. Next, in session 4, we'll have a look at what are the object recognition mechanisms available within Selenium to find the UI elements and interact with them. In session 5, we'll have a look at what are waits and how we can delay the execution of certain steps by using the waits within Selenium. And lastly, in session 6, we'll introduce what page object model is and how to incorporate page object model within Selenium tests. Thank you for watching this session. Have a nice learning.